In this video, we're going to learn how to write a rule given a situation. So let's start by defining what a rule is. In math, a rule is an equation, so that means it has an equal sign in it that relates two variables. So an example of that might be y equals 2x, because we have two variables, y and x, and it's an equation because it has an equal sign. Or perhaps it would be y equals 5 plus x. Those would both be examples of rules. And they don't need to use x and y, they can use any variables. So let's take an example. Let's say that Ida is 2 years older than her sister Nikki. And we are going to write a rule to represent this situation. So we need to know, we need a variable for Ida, we need a variable for Mickey, and we need to show that Ida is always going to be 2 years older than Mickey. So let's say that I is going to stand for Ida and M is going to stand for Mickey. We know that a rule would be that if we take Mickey's age and we add 2, that's always going to equal Ida's age. So this is our rule. It has an equation, it has a variable, two variables, and it shows the relationship between them. Let's try a few more. Before we do that, we're going to try a way of kind of annotating our problems to be able to help us out. So we're going to underline the starting or independent variable, right? So like what's the thing that we started with here? We're going to underline that. We are going to circle if there's ever something that we're multiplying by or any sort of a rate. We are going to box any value that's being added or subtracted. And we're going to double underline the dependent variable, the result. So let's try it for the example we did up above. So what did we start with? Well, we know Ida is 2 years older than her sister Mickey. So if we're trying to figure out Ida's age, we would start with Mickey's age. So we're going to underline Mickey. And that means we would double underline Ida. And then we have to decide, is 2 years older, is that a multiplier? Is that something that we're doing over and over and over and over again? Or is that something that's just being added or subtracted? And I think that's something that's just being added, right? You just add the 2 once. You don't add it multiple times. So I'm going to box 2 years older, like that. Okay, now you're going to try. All right. So let's say there are 12 eggs in each carton. Go ahead and write that sentence and then underline the starting or independent variable, double underline the resulting or dependent variable, and then decide, do we need a multiplier or is something being added or subtracted? Do it now. Okay, so if we were trying to figure out how many eggs there are based on the number of cartons, then the carton would be the starting or independent variable, and the eggs would be the dependent variable. And then we would take the number of cartons and we would multiply it by 12 to get the number of eggs. So we have a multiplier. And I can kind of tell that because of the in each, or another word that you might use, you might see sometimes would be per. That's like kind of a clue that you're doing a multiplier. So then my rule would be that I would take my starting variable, C, multiply it by 12, and it would give me my resulting variable, where C equals the number of cartons, and E equals the number of eggs. Let's do another one. All right, so this time, Jake's dog walks 5 steps ahead of him. Underline, circle, box, decide what's needed. Press play when you're ready. Okay, so to figure out where they're each walking, we would take Jake's number of steps, we would add 5, and that would give us the dog's number of steps, right? So the Jake is our starting or independent. The dog is our dependent. And walking 5 steps, that is going to always be 5, right? So that's just going to be adding. And for adding, we said that we were going to box. So we're going to box the 5 steps. So then our rule would be that J plus 5 equals dog. When J equals Jake's steps and D equals the dog's steps. Okay, next one. We have a plane that's flying 900 kilometers per hour. This one's a little bit tricky to figure out what the independent and dependent variables are. Give it a shot. See what you can do. All right, so on this one, the distance is changing based on the time, right? So time is our independent variable. So we're going to do a single underline on that. And then the distance that it travels is going to be the dependent variable. So the kilometers is our dependent variable, or I could see how maybe you would have double underlined the plane instead if you were thinking about this as like the plane's distance. I'm going to stick with kilometers for right now. And then the rate, is this like it goes 900 once and then it's done? No, this is like the speed, right? That's a rate. So we are going to circle our rate. So now what variables do we want to do? We could do K for kilometers, or you could do D for distance, or you could do P for the plane's distance. Any of those are fine as long as you know what they are. And maybe I'll do H for the number of hours. So then we would say that the number of hours times 900 equals the kilometers. If you chose to have it be like P equals plane's distance, and maybe T equal hours, I could see someone doing that, and it would be P times 900 equals T. Okay? Any of those are fine. All right, practice problem. All right, our practice problem is that Sage earns $5 for each item sold in her Etsy shop. Please write a rule and don't forget to tell me what your variables stand for.